God has not asked you to change the world. He's asked you to change your world. And there's a big difference. He hasn't asked you to change the world. You think about changing the world, it's overwhelming. You look at the level of problems and poverty and issues and garbage and junk and war and crime and pain and heartache all over planet Earth. And you look at yourself, you're like, how in the world can I possibly make a difference in all of that? Though here's the good news. God's not asking you to change the world. He's asking you to change your world. And the whole point of this series is not to get you to take responsibility for things you don't have, but to get you to take responsibility for the world that God has given you. God has given you your own sphere of influence. God has given you your own people, neighbors, co-workers, people that He's placed in your life. And as we take ownership of it, we can make a massive difference in the world when we begin to change our world. There's a famous story. It's debatable whether it's true or not. Either way, it's a great story. They say it's based on a version of a couple different stories. But years ago, there was a college professor on vacation with this family in Hawaii. And there's this great storm that comes every couple years. And what happens in this storm is thousands upon thousands of starfish are washed all along the beaches. And what happens is these starfish are stranded on the beach, and if they can't get back out into the ocean, they suffocate and they die. Well, one year on vacation, this professor's got up early and he's walking along the beach, and in the distance he sees a little boy. And this little boy, one by one, was picking up starfish. And he was throwing them into the ocean as far as he could throw them, saving their life. And the professor thought, this is pointless. There are literally thousands of these starfish, and there's only one little boy. Does this kid really believe he can make a difference? And so the professor walked slowly along the beach, and he came to the young man. The young man had only thrown a few more starfish out into the ocean. And the professor said, out of all of these starfish, thousands on this beach, as far as you can see, do you really believe you can make a difference? And the little boy didn't know what to say. He looked at the professor, he looked down at the starfish. He reached down and he picked one up and he threw it as far as he could throw it. And he said to the professor, I just made a difference for that one starfish. And that is what God is asking of each and every one of us. Again, our responsibility is not to change the world. Our responsibility is to change our world. As a local church, we can't meet every need that is happening in the world, but we can be a part. And we can do our part, and we can make a difference. Last week, many of you know, I had the privilege to be in India and see one of the projects that your generosity built. And sitting with the pastor in this little village community in the middle of nowhere, listening to the stories of how they are using this church building, how they turn it into a computer lab during the week, and they're educating these children from the village. The clean water well that they are maintaining now 2 years later, using it to evangelize and bring hope and bring the message of Jesus to people who need water. It's amazing to see. Now, we can't change every village in India, or every village in South America, or every village in Southeast Asia or Africa. But we can do something as a church. We can play our part. And that's why God's called us to be a local church, care about this community, love this community deeply because this community matters. But to be a church with a global impact, to make a difference, to change our world. There's been a lot of great change your world speeches from John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream. But the original change your world speech comes all the way back to Jesus. It was the beginning of his ministry in Matthew chapter 5. And I love the way the Message Bible puts it. He says, let me tell you why you are here. How many of you have ever wanted to know, why am I here? Like, what is the purpose to my life? Like what does God want to do with my life? What does he want me to do? Jesus is about to answer the question. Jesus is saying, let me tell you why you're here. Why every single one of you are here, what you're here for, and how to live your life. He says, you're here, and I love this, to be salt seasoning. That's why God placed you on earth. You're here to be salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors of this earth. You're here to make things taste better. When you show up, it should taste better. It should feel better. It should be better because you walked in the room. You're salt seasoning. And if you lose your saltiness, if you stop making things taste better, how are people going to taste godliness? How are they going to want God if they don't want you? Like, if they don't like you because you suck the life out of the room, how are they ever going to want the God that you have? Let's be honest. Like, some of you do more good for the other team with your countenance. I know, I'm supposed to be nice today. But it's like, oh, come to Jesus and he'll change your life like he changed my life. People are looking at you like, man, if he did that to you, keep him away from me. We're salt. He says you've lost your usefulness and you'll end up in the garbage. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, to bring out the God colors in the world. I love that. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this. Our faith is not a private thing, Jesus is saying. We go public with our faith, as public as a city up on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? We don't call them buckets anymore. We call them churches, don't we? Like, we get up under the church and we shine our light with each other. But I want to let you in on a little secret. Light works best in the darkness. Take your light in the darkness and it shines bright. I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I put you there on the hilltop on a light stand, shine. And that's what I want to teach you how to do today. I'm going to teach you how to shine with people. I'm going to teach you how to be salt seasoning, how to make your marriage taste better, how to make your family taste better, how to make your kids enjoy being around you a little bit more, how to make your employees want to come to work because you make it taste better. You make it, they enjoy it so much more working for you because you're salt seasoning. You bring out the God colors of this world. He says, keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God. That's the goal. As people want to be around us, they're going to want to be around our God. As we make things taste better, they're going to want to know why. This generous Father in heaven. Interesting that Jesus' very first message when he launched his ministry is that you and I are called to change our world. And how we do that is we are salt seasoning and we are light. We bring people close to God because we make things taste better. We add the God flavor, the God colors to the world that we live in. Now, how do we do this? Well, the first step in any process of change is we got to let it change us first. We got to get the gospel inside of us. Because if Jesus doesn't transform us, we don't have the ability to be a transformation agent in the world that we live in. You cannot give what you do not possess. Here's the challenge, though, that we deal with. People don't like change. People are resistant to change. Like even if it's better change, they're resistant. My wife and I, Amanda, one of the fights we get in often is I'll tell her in the morning, hey, let's go here for dinner. And it's a good place. And then last minute, I want to go somewhere better. And I'm like, hey, let's go here. Last minute, it's a better place. She actually likes the place more, but it creates issues as a marriage. How many of you understand what I'm saying? Because she'd been dreaming all day long of what she was going to order on the menu, and it was change, and it's a challenge. I used to think that only leaders like change and followers didn't like change. I now realize that it's not true. Leaders don't like change any more than anyone else unless it's their idea. Right? Change is uncomfortable. Let me give you an example on how hard it is for so many of us to change. I want everyone in the room, just fold your arms with me for a moment. Fold your arms, right? Let's just fold our arms together. Now, how many of you realize that there's only one way to fold your arms, right? Actually, there's another way to fold your arms, but it's of the devil. It's not of God, it's of the devil. Just try it for a moment. Flip your arms around and try to fold your arms. Doesn't it just give you like the heebie-jeebies? It's like, there's just something wrong with that. It's like, this is not of God. Try this with me. Put your hands together, interlock your fingers, right? Now that's how you pray. This is how God hears you, right? Now just flip your fingers back the other way for a moment. Now, God can't hear a prayer like this. It's just wrong. I mean, this is so uncomfortable and weird. I mean, you can't wait to get your fingers back the right way. Very simple exercise just to illustrate we're creatures of habit. We do not like change because we want to be comfortable. There is a comfortable way to clasp your hands together. There's a comfortable way to fold your arms together. Anything else is change, and we are resistant to change. But we're called to make a change according to Jesus. And to make that change, we've got to change. We've got to be willing to get out of our comfort zone a little. And how do we begin? Salt and light. We're here to make the world taste better, to look better, to feel better. So today I want to be very simple with this message. One of the things I've learned to do as a communicator is I'm not an educator, I'm a communicator. Educators, they like to take simple things and make them very difficult to understand. In fact, if it's too easy to understand, they don't like it. They get upset with it. Communicators, we just want to put the cookies on the bottom shelf. Like I want to make this attainable for everybody in the room, and I'm telling you, I promise, if you'll take these 4 simple principles on how to be salt and light, it'll make your marriage better. It'll make your parenting better. Your coworkers are gonna love working for you or working with you. It'll make your neighbors, everything in your world, taste better, look better. And it's very practical, very doable, very simple. Number 1, this is so simple but powerful, value people. Value people, and this is all about connecting. When I value you as a human being, it puts me in a position to connect with you. That there's a connection formed through value. And here's the point. If I don't win them to me, how am I going to win them to Christ? And if I don't win them to Christ, how are we going to change the world? So I've got to connect with people, and I can't connect with people unless I learn how to value them. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9, even though I'm free of the demands and expectations of everyone, in other words, I don't have to do this. Like I'm free. I don't have to do this. Say that with me for a moment. Say, I don't have to do this. You don't have to value people. We're free of all the expectations and demands. You don't have to do it. I have voluntarily become a servant to any and all in order to reach a wide range of people. Why? Because Jesus has called me to be salt and he's called me to be light. He goes on to say religious people, non-religious people, meticulous moralists, loose-living immoralists, the defeated, the demoralized, and I love this word, whoever. Whoever is everyone. Whoever is the most inclusive word because it includes everyone. Once you feel valued by someone, don't you feel connected to them? But it's how we see people. Jesus valued people. And the only people that ever got upset about Jesus valuing people were the religious people. They didn't like it. He's hanging out with sinners. He's hanging out with all the wrong people. But Jesus said, look, I've not come for the well. I've come for the sick. They need a doctor, and I've come to help them because I have value on people. So who do we value? Do we value people who act like us? People who look like us? Here's a good one. Do we only value people who vote like us? Like people who vote for the other side, I'm not going to value them. I mean, they're the reason America's falling apart. It was not the response I wanted. Wow. We try very hard not to be political, and we just ruined it. I don't value either side, to be honest, because both sides are corrupt to me. We value people. We're here to fulfill the Great Commission. We're here to value everyone. While we're on earth, if we're going to accomplish the Great Commission, we're going to have friends that are far away from God so that we can live a life of mission of bringing them close to God, to go after the lost sheep. God values you. I want you to hear that. God values you, puts a high value on you. You are so valuable that on the very worst day of your life, you committed the worst sin imaginable, the worst sin you've ever committed. You are so valuable on that day that you are worth the death of God's Son. That's how valued you are. God values me. Did you know God values the people that I like? But God also values the people I don't like. And that's the issue for most of us. Like, we don't mind God valuing the people we like. We just don't like the idea that God values the people we don't like. But it's His heart. And the challenge for, I think, so many of us is we unintentionally devalue people. We do it so subtly, subconsciously even. We see somebody doing a job that we would consider beneath ourselves. I would never do a job like that because I'm high and mighty. I'm important. Look at my job. Look at how much I earn. I would never do something like that. And then unintentionally, we begin to devalue people, subconsciously even. Here's the point. If I see you as weak, then I will help you because you're in need. And if I see you as broken, then I will fix you. But again, it's still Jesus, it's still Aaron the Messiah. Aaron's here to save the day. I'm Superman. Here's the point. If I see you as valuable, I will serve you. There's a big difference between helping people, fixing people, and truly serving people. And you will not serve people unless you see them as valuable. It's part of the problem with the American mission dollar. That's why we are so strategic as a church and where and when we invest and how we invest, because we're not here to save the day. Jesus is here to save the day. We're here to be catalysts. We don't look at people as broken and weak, and we look at people as valuable, and so we don't come to save the day. We come to serve. Years ago, when my son was 12 years old, we were at the border in Tijuana coming back across, and there was probably a 75-year-old Mexican man selling chiclet gum to the cars as they were waiting in line to come across the border, and he had them in a trash bag. And my son, 12 years old at the time, just made kind of a smart aleck comment, said he'd sell a lot more gum if he wasn't selling it out of a trash bag. And I asked him, I said, do you think that when he was a child, he had a dream that one day he would be 75, selling gum at the border to try to make a living, to try to even survive the life that he has? My son said, no. I said, I want you to think for a moment where we live. Our house, the cars that we have the privilege to drive, the food that we have the privilege to eat. And I want you to imagine for a moment where he lives, what his life is like, what he has to do to survive and take care of the family that he has. I said, what do you think the difference between me and him is? And being 12, my son just said, well, you're smarter than him. I said, don't ever say that. I said, there are people down here that are far smarter than I will ever be, and they will work 10 times harder than I will ever work in my life, and they'll never have what we have. So we don't look down on people because of their position in life. We see value in people. These are people that Jesus Christ died for. And here's the truth. God doesn't change us to accept us. God accepts us to change us. There's a big difference. And this is the model of our church. We're not going to make people clean themselves up before they can come to God. No, we come to God so that we can be cleaned up. I'll never be good enough for God. I can never clean myself up, get my act together well enough for God to accept me. No, I come to God broken and in need so that God can begin to change me. So we value people. Number 2, add value to people. Not only do I see them as valuable, but I seek to add value to their life. This is all about influencing people. And the reason we do this is because serving people is the first step in saving people. And valuing people is the first step in connecting with them. So what would it look like if you woke up every day asking yourself the question, how can I add value to people today? How can I go to work tomorrow? I have a team of people that work for me. How can I go to the office tomorrow with this idea, how can I add value to the people who are working under me, the people who are working in this company, working on my team, working in my department? What would it look like if every day we just had this filter of, let's Let's have a filter of 5 things. Value people. Think of ways to value people. Like, let's be creative. Look for ways to value people. Do things that add value to people. Encourage others to add value to people. We just lived our life adding value. One of the things that my wife and I do is in our salary, we set aside, there's the 10% that's God's. We return it to Him. We don't even think about them. The tithe is first. It's His. But we set aside 5% of our income every single month into what we call this generosity fund. And that whole fund is designed for us to add value to people. So we have a whole budget for generosity in our family. I remember one of our neighbors a couple years ago lost their dog, and the dog died. It was a very sad day for the family because they loved that dog. The dog had been with them for many years, and we just wanted to cheer them up and do something, and I'm not getting any kickback for this. I should, because I've done it a lot of times now, but I bought them a Ninja Foodie because Ninja Foodies are amazing. If you don't have a Ninja Foodie, something's wrong. I probably bought 10 Ninja Foodies for different people in my life because it's just such an amazing device, and I just wanted to add value to their life, and so I bought them a Ninja Foodie. And I remember the joy that it didn't replace the sadness of the dog, but it just let them know somebody valued them. Somebody cared about them. Somebody was looking out for them and not just themselves. What would it look like if every day we looked to add value to people's lives, the people that are close to us, the people who are just neighbors and co-workers? Every morning, ask the question, who can I add value to today? And every night, go to bed, did I add value today? Just make it a life mission. We're salt. We're to make it taste better. We're light. We're to bring out the God colors. We do that by adding value to people's life. Paul says in Ephesians 4, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up. Add value so that you can build them up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen, that it may add value to the. Here's, in all of your relationships in life, here's the truth. You are either a plus or a minus in somebody's life. Every relationship you have, you're either a plus or a minus. You either add value to that relationship or you take from that relationship. You are either a breath of fresh air or you suck the air out of it. And you have to ask yourself, because Jesus is commanding us to be salt and light. You are salt. You are light. You are to bring out the God flavors, meaning we add value to people. How many of you have ever been around the people who don't add value? They take value, they suck the air out of the room, and every time you see them, you hide, right? Like you hide. You're like, oh, you will divert. You will walk a different direction to avoid them at all costs because you know a 3-minute encounter with them is just going to suck the life out of you for the day. Some of you are hiding from people right now. That's why you're sitting over here and someone's sitting over here. Like you're going to sneak around the back of the building out to your car afterwards because you know, 3 minutes is going to suck the energy out of me. We all get to decide who we want to be. Don't be the person that everyone else is hiding from. Be the person that's adding value. And here's what will happen. I love this statement. You don't have to be like them to reach them, but you do have to like them to reach them. Like, I'm not going to compromise who I am. I'm not going to act like the world, but I do got to like them. I got to value them. I got to add value to them if I'm going to make a difference in their life. Value people. It's all about our heart condition. Add value to people. It's all about our actions, the fruit of our heart. Here's number 3. Live good values. This is all about attracting people to you. When you live out good values, when you are a life-giving person, somebody that has patience and love and joy, overflowing joy, peace, calm, you will attract people to you. When you live out values, people are attracted to you. Why? Because we're salt seasoning. When I walk into the room, I make everything taste better. And if I make everything taste better, people are going to want to be around me. So Paul says in Galatians chapter 5, but the fruit produced by the Holy Spirit within you. Again, values are inside of you. Values are what you live out from the inside. is divine love in all its varied expressions. Joy that overflows. Joy that overflows. Peace that subdues. Patience that endures. Kindness in action. A life full of virtue, faith that prevails, gentleness of heart, strength of spirit. And then I love what Paul says. He says, never set the law above these qualities. The law is not above our values. Our values are first and foremost. These things are meant to be limitless because they come from within. You see, the fruit of the Spirit, the values we live by as believers is higher than the law. The law will never attract people to God. The law won't. Fruit is what is attractive. If the law was sufficient, the law always comes up short. If it was sufficient, we wouldn't need the New Testament because the law could have got the job done. So we need to be people of character. We need to live out the fruit of the Spirit. Allow the Holy Spirit, again, transform us so we can transform the world. Get it inside, the fruit of the Spirit, which again only comes, you may be a naturally patient disposition, but that doesn't mean you have the fruit of the Spirit patience. They're different. There are a lot of natural dispositions that look like fruit, but really aren't fruit, because the way the fruit works is they're all growing equally in your life. You can't say, well, I'm really good at love, I just struggle with patience. Because that's not how fruit, they're interconnected, the Bible says. And it happens through the Holy Spirit in our life. And then here's number 4, share good values. And this is all about transforming. When I get in close contact with people and I share values, it's where transformation begins to take place. Paul says it like this: follow my example. Look at me as I follow the example of Christ. Remember at the beginning of the message we said you got to be changed to change. Like it's got to happen in you first. And then you live it out with others. And a transformation process begins. It's the vision of our church. Get the gospel inside of you. That's the first step. If it doesn't get in you, it can't change you. Well, that's the know God part of our vision. And then there's the live in freedom. That's let it transform you. Let the gospel come inside of you, begin to transform you. And then Jesus says, let me tell you why you're here. That's discovering your purpose. You're called to be salt, seasoning, and light. And then finally, we change our world, which is what it's about to make a difference. Now, this whole transformation process in the journey, let me be very clear, it happens in small groups. It's in the small group relationships in your life that we're transformed. Whether it's an official small group of your church family, or it's just a small group of believers in your life, that's where transformation occurs, because it's where we share good values. I get together with believers in a small group context. We're talking about the Lord. We're talking about His Word. We're talking about living out the values of our heart and life. The fruit of the Spirit growing. It's where we model values. It's where we encourage values. And if we're going to stand in a broken world, you're going to have value. Think about a paper bag, an empty paper bag in your front yard. If you put an empty paper bag in your front yard, it's not going to stand up. It'll likely be blown over and blown away. Why? Because there's no substance in an empty paper bag. That's what life looks like without values. When there's no substance, you get blown around. You get knocked over because there's no substance. When you put something in the paper bag, it can stand its ground. It can hold steady. It can stay upright. And the same is true for us. When the values come inside, we hold steady. But it comes through the relationships in our life. I can teach you values on Sunday, but that's not going to install them in your life. They get installed in your life when you begin to have New Testament relationships with other believers. And it creates stability. Good values make us bigger on the inside than the outside. Good values make us better on the inside than the outside. Think about how many people do you know right now who are dealing with anxiety, depression, loneliness, fear, helplessness? And they're looking for validation. That's what social media is all about, by the way, is validation. If I don't get enough likes, then I don't feel validated. So I post it all. Like, I want you to see what I'm eating for every meal, 8 times a day, because I need constant validation. When you have good values on the inside of you, you need less validation on the outside because there's substance. You know, one of the investments of our church that we get to partner with is values-based curriculum all throughout Latin America. John Maxwell wrote a whole values-based form of curriculum that is now in 22 nations in Latin America at the invitation of the presidents. And this is not an after-school program, but it's being taught in the main classroom of the public schools during the day. And the reports and feedback are coming because it's all biblical values, that it's transforming schools. It's changing the self-esteem of students. It's changing their work ethics and behaviors. It's changing all the disciplinary problems that they're having in the schools. It's changing graduation rates and GPA rates. Why? Values. Strategically being brought in, then to, in turn, bring them to Christ. And here's what they've discovered in values-based curriculum. Because it's not just in the schools. They do this with government officials and political officials. It happens in what they call transformation tables, which are small groups. You get 5, 6, 7, 8 people sitting around a table. Values go deep. You hear a lecture, you get about 10% of it. But you take the lecture, you take the information that you're hearing, and you get with other believers and you begin to work it into your life, it goes deep. So let's make a decision to be salt and light. Steve Harvey, he said, your career is what you get paid for. Your calling is what you were made for. You were made to be salt and light. So I'm going to end with this quote. Last couple years, I've had the privilege to spend a lot of time with John Maxwell. A couple weeks ago, you'll see a photo. He was invited us to his home all day in Florida. And he said this, and it like exploded inside of me. And it's almost like my life vision now. He said, I want my life to be so attractive that people who know me but don't know God will want to know God because they know me. What would it look like if that became true of each and every one of us? What kind of impact would we have in this community? What kind of impact would you have amongst your neighbors? What kind of impact would you have in your career, with your coworkers, people working for you and with you? If this became true, that I want my life, I'm salt seasoning. I'm here to make it taste better. I'm here to make it brighter. Bring out the God colors of the world that we live in. So I'm going to value people. I'm going to add value to them. I'm going to live out my values, and I'm going to share those values to see change begin to take place. Would you close your eyes with me?